So it's the first Christmas that my entire family is all going to be staying in the same house. And quite frankly, I am terrified that there is not enough wine in the world to get me through this. You see, in a lot of ways, my grandmother, she's probably a lot like your grandmother. She watches a lot of Fox News. She still calls Asians Orientals. And she randomly makes jokes about the intelligence of Polish people. But in other ways, my grandmother, she's nothing like your grandmother. She's had quite a bit of plastic surgery. She's had a facelift, a tummy tuck, a breast reduction, and permanent makeup like the eyebrows, which my mom says makes her look like Groucho Marx. And my grandmother, she certainly doesn't act like your grandmother either. She's in her late 70s, and she's constantly drinking a vodka gimlet. And maybe it's the gimlet, but she has this habit of saying uncomfortable sexual things. Like telling us that she's a cougar for sexy singer Adam Levine. So it's Christmas Eve, and my grandmother tells everybody, "We have just seen this movie, We're the Millers, and it is too funny. It's apparently about pot dealers posing as a fake family and smuggling a bunch of weed out of Mexico in an RV. And my family decides that we're all gonna ring in the birth of Jesus by watching it together that evening." My mom, she's totally in on this. I think she must have gotten her sort of perverted sense of humor from her mom. If you guys had the mom who baked cookies for your middle school sleepover, I had the mom who, while I turned a bright shade of red, brought out her sexy Mel Gibson poster and showed it to everyone. And all this brings me back to when I was a teenager, and my mom insisted that we watch a movie that she had seen and loved, which was unfortunately American Pie. And I remember this. I'm hiding my face and I'm pretending not to really watch, and my mother, she thinks this movie is hysterical. And we get to this one point where Tara Reid, she turns to her best friend and she says, "The first time you do it, you know, it hurts. But then you do it again and again and again, and it just starts to feel good, like really good." And my mom, she must have thought this was the appropriate time for some abstinence promotion. Because she turns to me and she says, "Don't listen to her, Andrea. She's lying." So immediately when We're the Millers comes up, I start basically having American Pie PTSD. Why can't we just spend Christmas watching It's a Wonderful Life like a normal family? You see, I didn't get the pervert gene. I mean, I'm not a prude. I'm just a hoity-toity East Street Cinema type. But the other women in my family, their idea of humor is like a guy getting his penis crushed by an anvil. And frankly, penis crushing just isn't my thing. But it's family time, and I'm trapped. And I've got to get through this. So I turn to my personal Christmas savior, a couple glasses of wine. And by a couple, I mean 4. Immediately, when the credits start rolling, my mother starts in. "Oh, Andrea, this is R-rated. Are you sure this is good for you?" And I just kind of roll my eyes, but then my grandmother, she chimes in too. "Andrea, I am so warped. This is my kind of movie." And then she tells us there's one especially funny part coming up, and now I'm terrified. So we begin our journey. The Millers head to Mexico and they pack their RV full of weed, and our fake dad tries to get his fake son to bribe a corrupt cop by telling him to, quote unquote, suck his dick. Now, I'm not really into statutory rape humor, but apparently my grandmother is, because she is in hysterics. I just pretend not to see any of this and go for another glass of wine. Soon, the Millers, they run into a real family, and they have to pretend that one of the sacks of weed is a fake baby for their daughter's health project. And our fake mom says it's to teach teens to stick to the big A. And our fake dad, he pipes up, "Anal." She means abstinence. Now, I'm not sure there's ever an appropriate time to have a heart-to-heart about anal sex with your grandmother. But my grandmother has apparently found it. Because she turns to me and she says, "Stick to abstinence." It's American Pie all over again. Next, the Millers Millers, they enter a tent with the real family, and for some reason the real family starts talking about their vibrator, and they start talking about swinging, and eventually the Millers leave, and we hear this buzzing sound coming from the tent. And as if we all didn't get what was going on, my grandmother, she's cackling. She says out loud to everybody, "You can hear the vibrator." My grandmother just said vibrator. But apparently none of these is the funny part, because she tells us it's still coming up. I say a silent prayer to the Merlot gods. Give me strength. Finally, the Millers are back on the road, and we see this tarantula crawling around their RV, and we watch it crawl up the fake son's leg, and all of a sudden he starts screaming and swearing, and he runs out of the RV, and he drops his pants. And then we see it. His testicle is the size of a grapefruit. And I think that this is basically the stupidest thing that I have ever seen, but my grandmother is hysterical. "Oh my God," she says, "my face hurts. I have laughed so much. That and well, the vibrator thing was the funniest part." That was the funny part? And then I start laughing, not because I think that this is remotely funny, but I'm basically laughing at how much my mom and my grandmom are laughing. I mean, they are hysterical at this testicle thing. And in that moment, I'm warped too. I'm one of them. They all start talking about how this is one of the funniest movies that they've seen in a while, and what must have been a fit of complete insanity, or more likely was my 5th glass of wine. I turn to them and I say, "You know what's a really funny movie? Bridesmaids. I mean, there's this one part where they all shit in the street. We should watch that tomorrow."